What exactly happened in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022 at 1122 King Road at the University of Idaho? I'm going to tell you what I think happened. Hey everyone, it's Lucky from Unfiltered Lucky, and today I'm going to reveal my theory of what I believe happened at 1122 King Road at the University of Idaho. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you've probably already gathered that I don't believe that one single person committed these crimes. I believe that it was multiple people. And there's a reason that I don't believe that it was just one person. And the main reason is I don't believe that one person would risk going into a house that they're not familiar with and where there's 6 people inside this house. And I don't believe that if one single attacker was to break into this house in order to take someone's life, I don't believe that they would start at the top level. That just wouldn't make sense to me, somebody doing it on their own. Once they get into the house and get up to the top level, if they're taking somebody's life with a sharp-edged blade, the roommates below the suspect, the roommates on the second floor and the ground floor, are definitely going to hear what's happening upstairs. So I don't think that a single attacker would take the risk of the roommates that are underneath them running from the house. All of the roommates on the first 2 levels are all near exits. I mean, Xana and Ethan are the furthest from an exit, and that's just a quick run across the living room, through the kitchen, and out the back door. So it doesn't make sense that if somebody thought out these crimes, that they would begin at the top level. Because once the roommates below them heard what was happening, they could easily run out of the house. And I think that somebody who's planning this type of crime would have definitely thought about that. So let's start from the beginning. I believe that whoever committed these crimes, and I do believe that there were multiple people. I believe that there was possibly 2 to 3 that entered the home. And I believe that they also had a lookout. So a possible 4th. I do believe that they had a lookout. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. I believe that they were dropped off or they parked further from the property and walked over to the property. But I do believe that they were dropped off at a rendezvous point, which is where they were dropped off, and it was also where they were picked up, I believe. So I believe that they were dropped off at a certain point and walked to the house. At that point, I believe that the spotter drove the car and parked it in an area where he could watch the house. He or she could watch the house. This spotter could have possibly had a scanner, a police scanner. I mean, if you get on your local neighborhood watch app on your phone, every one of your neighbors has scanners downloaded on their phones. They're listening to police scanners to listen for crimes in the neighborhood. So scanners have become very common. So to me, it wouldn't be surprising if this spotter also had a scanner in order to monitor police activity in the area. So I believe that 2 to 3 suspects entered the home. I'm going to lean more towards 2. And so I'm probably going to be talking as if there was 2 suspects who entered the home. So we would have 2 suspects, possibly 3, but I'm going to say 2 suspects enter the home with a spotter outside, a lookout. I believe that they went right through the front door. I don't believe, there was no sign of forced entry. And as much as I've heard that people believe that they entered through the back door, I believe they went right through the front door. And I believe that they were either let into the house by one of the roommates. Because as I said, I believe that these suspects, whoever committed these crimes, I believe that they were familiar with these roommates. I believe that they were acquainted with these roommates. Because there's multiple, I believe that at least one of them was acquainted. There may have been somebody who wasn't acquainted with these roommates, but I believe there was at least one individual who was acquainted with these roommates and familiar with this house and familiar with these roommates. So I believe that they were either let into the house by who I believe would be Bethany. Bethany's bedroom is right by the front door, and I believe that she possibly recognized one of these people or these individuals and let them into the house. There's also a possibility that they had entry. They knew how to gain entry into this house through the front door because they came and went from this house. So it's been reported that a lot of people came and went from this house. So it wouldn't be uncommon for people to be coming in at all hours of the night. Also, this was described as a party house. So it's not going to be uncommon for people to be in and out of this house. So I believe that the suspects entered through the front door. I also believe that when they got into the house, they did go straight to the spare bedroom. So now we're going to talk about this spare bedroom, because the spare bedroom is something I've kind of had my eye on since the beginning. When I found out that there was an empty bedroom in this house, I kind of became focused on that because I had a feeling and I believed that this spare bedroom has something to do with these crimes. So I believe that this was a reaction to an action. So I believe that there's a possibility that an incident had occurred within a few days prior to these crimes. And I believe that that was the catalyst for these crimes. That's what set the wheels in motion. So I believe that there was chit-chat around the campus about the incident that occurred prior to these crimes. And I think that these people who would eventually become the attackers heard the chit-chat and heard the talk. And I believe that they went to this house to confirm whether what they were hearing was correct or not. So I believe that these suspects came in the front door and went into the spare bedroom. Now, at this time, I believe that their suspicions were confirmed. I do believe that narcotics were being stashed in this bedroom. And I do believe that narcotics were possibly being sold out of this house, out of this bedroom. Now, I'm not saying that the roommates were selling narcotics, but there is a connection between the roommate who leased that empty bedroom but didn't live there, and another individual who we know has been charged with offenses of selling narcotics. So we know that there's a narcotics connection between this spare bedroom and people from the outside. And I'm going to get into that more in another video. I'm not going to go down that road today because I kind of want to stick to my theory as I believe that these crimes happen. But we're definitely going to talk about this connection between this spare bedroom and narcotics. So I believe that once the attackers left the spare bedroom, I do believe that they came into contact with Bethany and let her know to stay in her room. They warned her, stay in your room and do not leave this room, no matter what. At that point, I believe that they headed upstairs, and I believe that this is when Bethany begins messaging Dylan. And I believe that Bethany is messaging Dylan to warn her as well and let Dylan know, stay in your bedroom. Do not leave your bedroom no matter what. So I believe this is when the correspondence begins happening between Bethany and Dylan through messaging. So I believe that the attackers head upstairs, and I believe that they head directly to the top floor. So, because I believe they know exactly where they're going. So, I believe they head to the top floor. And when they get to the top floor, I believe that Maddie, it's very possible that Maddie could have passed out in her bed, in her bedroom. Maddie was very intoxicated. It appeared from the video, from the grub truck. When she was walking around the grub truck, she was walking in front of people and walking in between people who were having a conversation, and she just appeared to be very intoxicated, more so than Kaylee, I would say. But I believe that Maddie could have passed out in her bed at this point, in her bedroom. Now, Kaylee, I believe, was in her old bedroom, which I say old bedroom because there's kind of a discrepancy, because I keep seeing it reported that Kaylee had moved out and that she was just coming back to the house to visit. But as we can see in photographs, there was bedroom furniture in this bedroom. So it's unclear whether Kaylee had moved her stuff out of the bedroom or just left for a while and still needed to move her furniture out of the bedroom. That's unclear. But we do know that there was bedroom furniture in that bedroom. So I believe that Kaylee was either in her bedroom with her dog or she was in the bathroom. So the suspects come up the stairs to the top level, and I believe that their plan would have been to split up and one go to each bedroom because they know where they're going. They know what they're doing. So I believe their plan would have been to split up and one go to Kaylee's room and one go to Maddie's room. But I believe that Kaylee maybe comes upon them or bumps into them in that hallway in the top level. She's possibly coming out of the bathroom or that type of scenario. It's possible she could have been in her bedroom and the intruder went in and got her as well. But I believe that Kaylee possibly bumped into them at the top level in this little hallway area outside of the restroom, which is why Kaylee's dog was closed off in her bedroom, in her old bedroom. At this point, I believe that the attackers grab Kaylee and take her and throw her on the bed behind Maddie. And this is where I believe that Dylan believes that she hears Kaylee upstairs playing with her dog. So I believe she hears roughhousing, which sounds like roughhousing. And I believe that's the sound of Kaylee being thrown on the bed behind Maddie. At this point, I believe that Maddie could very well still be passed out. Now, I believe that the suspects then take the lives of Maddie and Kaylee. Now, during this time, I believe that Dylan is in her bedroom hearing all of this. Because you have to remember, Dylan's bedroom is right underneath Maddie's bedroom. So Dylan is hearing all of this. These are wood floors. So Dylan is hearing furniture, bedroom furniture, moving around. She's hearing chaos upstairs. I mean, I have to believe that it sounded much more than roughhousing. I believe that Dylan heard everything that was going on upstairs. And I believe that at this time, Dylan sends out a message to the roommates, asking the roommates if they're hearing these noises, if they're hearing what's going on upstairs, because it has to be chaos. Now, I believe that Xana also heard what was going on upstairs. Now, she might not have heard it as well as Dylan, because Dylan was right underneath all of this chaos. But I believe when Dylan sends out the message, Xana tells Ethan to go out and check and see what's going on. So I believe that at this point, Ethan starts to proceed up the stairs to go check on these sounds that are happening upstairs. Now I want to stop right here and talk about this knife sheath while we're still upstairs, because the knife sheath where Brian Kohberger's DNA was found on the button snap was found in Maddie's bedroom on the bed. Now, this knife sheath had Brian Kohberger's DNA on the button snap. Nowhere else around the house, but on this knife sheath on the button snap, which is just laying next to Maddie on the bed. So here's an idea I have about how this knife sheath could have ended up in this house without Brian Kohberger being there. Now, we know that Brian Kohberger was a drug user. And I believe that it's possible that maybe Brian Kohberger traded this K-bar for drugs, for narcotics in the past, prior to these crimes happening. So I believe that it's very possible that Brian Kohberger was buying narcotics from these people that were selling narcotics out of this house. And that this K-bar was already inside the house. Maybe one of the roommates possibly had this K-bar for protection in the house. You know, I don't know that anybody's considered that this knife could have already been in the house. This sharp-edged blade could have already been in the house. We don't know where this weapon came from. And all we have is the sheath. We don't know where this came from. So this could very well have already been inside the house. And I believe that it's very possible that Brian Kohberger could have traded this weapon for narcotics prior to these crimes happening. And the knife just happened to be in the house and eventually was used. This would make sense as to why the knife sheath was just discarded on the bed. Because I don't believe that investigators planted this knife sheath there. I don't believe that Brian Kohberger dropped this knife sheath there. I believe that somebody used this weapon and just discarded the knife sheath on the bed because it wasn't their knife sheath. So they didn't really have a connection to this knife sheath. So it didn't really matter to them where they left the knife sheath or where they discarded the knife sheath. And I believe that that's how the knife sheath possibly ended up on this bed with Brian Koberger's DNA on the button snap. So let's get back to Ethan. Now, Ethan, I believe, is now headed up the stairs to find out what these noises are. And I believe that he runs into the attackers on the stairs. Now, at this point, I believe he turns around and runs back towards Xana's bedroom. But I believe the attackers catch him before he reaches the bedroom. I believe they catch him right in front of the bedroom door. And I believe that Xana shuts her bedroom door and locks it. And Ethan is on the other side. Now, I'm not judging anybody. Any of the roommates, anybody in this house, I'm not judging anybody. Nobody knows how they're going to react in this type of situation until you're in this situation. So I do believe that she shut the door and locked it, as a reaction. And I believe that Ethan was outside that door and the attackers already had Ethan. Now, I believe that they possibly may have delivered a few strikes with a sharp-edged blade in order to subdue Ethan, because as we know, Ethan was a big athletic kid. Ethan was 6'4" tall, and he was athletic. So he's not going down easily. So I believe that both of them subdued Ethan, and I do believe that they possibly delivered a few strikes with this sharp-edged weapon in order to subdue him. But I do believe that they were keeping him alive because I believe they were using him to get Xana to open the door. Now, could they have just kicked this door open? That's a possibility. These were interior doors, so I can't imagine that somebody couldn't kick this door open. But there's no reports that there's reports that there was no sign of forced entry. But does this include the interior of the house? Because there's no reports that Xana's bedroom door, that somebody forcibly entered through Xana's door. So I'm going to assume that eventually Xana did open this door. And at that point, I believe that her life was taken as well as Ethan's life was taken. I believe that Ethan was then moved into Xana's bedroom, just inside of her bedroom door. At that point, I believe that the two suspects left the house knowing that they left two survivors. They knew this, but I believe they knew that these two would not talk. So I do believe that Dylan was in shock. I do believe that because she heard everything happen. So I do believe that Dylan was in shock. Now, I believe after the suspects left the residence, which I believe one left out the front door and I believe one left out the back sliding glass door. I believe that at that point, Bethany and Dylan had already been warned. Do not call the police. Do not come out of these bedrooms, and if you say anything, you will suffer the same fate. Because Bethany and Dylan had plenty of time to call law enforcement. They could have called 911 at any time, but they didn't. And I believe that it was because they were afraid for their lives. Now, after the suspects had left the house, Dylan and Bethany, they don't know how many there are. They don't know if these people are outside of the house, which is the reason why I believe they did not run from the house. I believe that they didn't run from the house because they didn't know if somebody was outside. I believe they felt as if though they would be risking their lives to run from the house. Because they didn't know if somebody was outside of this house with these people that were inside the house. So they don't know what's happening outside of their bedroom. They can hear everything, but they don't know what's happening outside of their bedroom. So I believe that this is also a reason why the 911 call didn't come in for 8 hours. I believe that that's what caused the delay calling 911. Because I believe that they were both probably in shock about what had just happened. And they were both very scared for their own lives because either one of them could have been next. They're hearing all of this. So they don't know. Are they next? So I believe that they're both in shock, but I believe that they were both scared to come out of their bedrooms. And I believe that they definitely were afraid to call 911. Because they may have been informed that the lookout who's outside has a police scanner. And that if they call 911, these suspects are going to know they called 911. And then they could lose their lives. So I believe that's why there was no 911 call. And that's why they did not come out of their bedrooms. And that's why I believe that the 911 call took 8 hours. Because I believe not only that they were in shock, but I also believe that they didn't know if these people are still outside, if there's still some people in the house. They don't know. They know what's happened because they've heard everything. But they don't know. So they're not going to risk it. They're not coming out of their bedrooms, in my opinion. And I believe that's why the 911 call took so long. You notice that when 911 was called, the call was made from Dylan's phone, from Dylan's cell phone. But it wasn't Dylan who called 911. And I believe that's because they were told not to call the police. So Dylan did not call police. So they used Dylan's phone, but it was not her that called 911. And I believe that that's the reason, is because they were warned. And I believe that after this whole experience of them hearing everything going on in this house, they're not going to risk that. They're not going to risk, they're not going to risk their lives. So, you don't want to call 911, but you also don't want to call any friends either to come over because you don't want to bring them into this situation. So I believe that that's why nobody was called. And I believe that a lot of the secrecy and a lot of the reason that you're seeing a lot of these generic statements and, nobody's really talking is because these people are aware of what happened, and they're scared that that could probably happen to them as well. So that's my theory. And it's an evolving theory. So as information comes out that I haven't seen already, that theory could evolve. But as of right now, from my research and from what I've learned about these crimes, that's what I believe happened that morning on November 13th. Thanks for watching my video, and please stay tuned for my next videos. I have a lot more information that I want to share, and I have a lot more insights about feelings that I have about these crimes that I'm going to be sharing in upcoming videos. So please subscribe and leave your comments in the comment section, and we'll see you next time.